invitation and talk here tonight. Yeah, no, great to have you here. Yeah, so for everybody coming in, this is Startup Grind events. Startup Grind actually started almost 10 years ago. This is the 10-year anniversary coming up. Started out in Silicon Valley. Now it's spread to 600 different chapters around the world, doing different fireside chat, panel events, and workshops every month with different speakers we bring in to help share with the local startup community. So we have a couple different partners. We work with this basically a really cool startup itself that became a unicorn last year, Brex. That's a corporate credit card for startups, and was started by two founders that were in the Y Combinator program and just weren't even able to get a credit card themselves, so they started a credit card for startups. And we're partnered with and sponsored by the Verizon 5G Challenge, which for anyone with an IoT device, it's a $1 million challenge, pitch competition, and you can apply through that. We have a link on the Startup Grind website. And yeah, we work with Cross.co is our media team that's filming here tonight and going to take some great videos for us. My other company, Prepare for VC, helps startups through the fundraising process, and we work with a variety of development firms and other resources that can also help anything you need for your startup. And now we also have a PR route here tonight that anybody looking for press, we have Ashley to tap into. And we're really excited that you all came out tonight and excited to hear Ashley's story and sort of her pathway. She's the author of Unknown to Unforgettable and also the founder of PR company Appleseed Communications. So yeah, really excited to have you here tonight and excited to share your story.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for coming, guys. If you want to move up closer, you can. We're friendly.
Yeah, can we just start with a little bit of background on you, like what really got you into the PR route and sort of, how did your career get into this? And what's your story, getting to, or the beginning of getting to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. So for those of you who don't know me, I grew up on a farm in Arkansas with 100 chickens. And I couldn't even see my neighbors. I lived at the end of a dirt road and wore denim ankle-length skirts more often than not. And I didn't even know PR was an industry at all.
Right.
In fact, magazines were something that I would sneak away and read in secret in my mom's bathroom because I was interested in media. And so the fact that I've helped now to build multiple companies that have gone viral around the world is just proof that miracles still happen, because there is no reason in the world why I should be the one that has done this, except that I cracked the code and learned a system that anyone can use anywhere in the world. And so anybody here from a small town, raise your hand. Small towns. Okay, so a few of you guys are my people. And when you're from a small town or you feel like underrepresented or silenced or overlooked or unheard, this is a common feeling with entrepreneurs, people who are working around the clock, nights and weekends, 7 days a week, trying to carve a niche and a space for yourself where there is none. And that's why I exist. That's my passion and my mission, is to help to transfer the power and the platform to you so that you do get heard with your message and your mission. Because how many people know anything about what's going on in Arkansas right now? Anybody know what's happening in Arkansas? No, I don't either. And the truth is, there's millions of people in a state like that and around the world that I was one of them. And they just do not know how to move from point A to point B to get a platform. And they work 3 to 4 jobs every day trying to hustle harder, thinking that that's going to be a path forward. And I'm here to say it's not. In fact, if you don't have a platform, you have to leverage another platform to propel your own. And so I was invited to be on the founding team of a fashion magazine. I went to college and wound up in New York City and launched a fashion magazine. We were right there, with everyone in the co-working spaces, working nights and weekends, going home crying and just, really thinking that the grinding was going to get us there. And I wound up telling the team, look, guys, we need language to describe how we're different, because the investors were turning a blind eye. How many people can relate to that? The investors were turning a blind eye, and so were the readers, saying,
Right.
fashion magazine's kind of cool, but it's a saturated market. How many times have we heard that? Whatever industry we're in, there is no industry that's not saturated anymore. So here we are, and I told the team we need language and we need to tell people we are the first no Photoshop fashion magazine to exist. And by twisting that, it captured the imagination of the media and people who might want to write about us. And that campaign actually went viral around the world, and we got 180 features in 8 months. And it captured the imagination of the readers, and I fell in love with storytelling, and almost a decade, here we are.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's incredible. So you just, was the rest of your team instantly on board with that, or did you have to, also pitch them, convince them that this was something, that could go viral?
I think that they just said, okay, Ashley, run with it. They didn't know what would happen.
Right.
And neither did I. And what I realized was, I needed to get results. I didn't know what worked. I didn't know what PR was. But I just knew if I don't get results, I'm going to be fired. So I wound up being at desk-side meetings with the New York Times and E! News and Huffington Post and all these outlets, and they were saying yes. And what I realized was actually I had tapped into a very key system that is repeatable and duplicatable for anyone to use to get similar results. And I distilled it down into a 5-step method, which I now use with all my clients and customers around the world. And it is based around empathic expression. So empathic expression is really all about thinking about what does our target customer want and what solves the problem, what is the solution to the problem that they have, and then how do I craft a headline that's going to make them want to click on it.
Right. Oh, that's great. So, obviously, one of the first steps there is sort of, does everyone, sort of know who their ideal customer is going in, and you're helping them sort of target them better, or are you also sort of figuring out, are they targeting the right customer and how to reach them?
Yeah, we do all of that. So now my company is called Appleseed Communications, and we do have our system that we go through, and one of them is around identifying your target customer. But show of hands, how many people here have a book or want to have a book? Okay, awesome, amazing. Wow, most of you guys actually. I just put a poll out on my Facebook. It was 50 some odd people wanted to write a book.
Right.
So this is, you are a solution creator, right? You as authors are solution creators. You have a message to share. How many people would like to close an investor deal? Okay. Awesome. Okay, some of the same authors would also like to have some money, right? So this is good. You guys are my people. So for people that want to close an investor deal, or I think you're also an investor, right? So how many people are investors here? Okay, so some people. So interestingly, anytime you are getting ready to tell the story, your company has 3 things that it needs. Your brand, your company, your business has 3 things that it needs to be successful. It needs a good product, which is, a no-brainer. It needs money, but it also needs the story. And the story is that grassroots method of, the oil that keeps the gears turning. If you have a great product and you have money, but you don't have a story, you are going to be dead in the water.
Right.
And that's just how it goes. If you have a great story, but you don't have the money, you could get the money. And so, especially for anyone who feels underrepresented or silenced, overlooked, unheard, the storytelling piece is a really great guerrilla tactic to get in front of people through their own will that can then also impress the investors and get them to say yes faster.
Yeah. No, I've definitely seen, there was one company I saw that, they were coming to pitch an angel group, and the day before they were in the Boston Globe, and everybody had seen it going in. Definitely adds a lot of value. So I've definitely seen sort of that power of the press in action, and I guess working with focusing and working with a lot of startups. I mean, a lot of everybody sort of wants press, but how do you sort of convince, or are they coming to you like ready to push the button on hiring a PR company, or are you showing them that this is really the right time for them to start there and get out there and promote themselves and their business?
Like, what is a good time to start
with
PR? Yeah, that's a really good question. So in terms of when you want to get started, in general, I tell people that if possible, you would want to insert the story somewhere within your product or service. And that would be growth hacking it. Okay, so for us, for the magazine, as an example, we cast models off the street. They were not professional models by any means, and we actually overlooked some professional models because we wanted to have a real celebratory magazine where women didn't feel shamed. And so that was already a story baked into what we were doing. So think about what you're doing in your own business or in your book or the message that you have that is noteworthy, okay? Then when you think about when to start promoting, in general, you want to start promoting about 6 months out, or at least build out the communication strategy and plan so that when you do go to market with it, then you already know, okay, I'm going to give the media 6 weeks advance notice, because people think that the product's going to be so amazing and revolutionary that the red carpet will roll out for you. And what I tell people is that you actually have to build your own red carpet. And the way that you build your own red carpet is to think of yourself like a Michelin-rated restaurant. Who here loves fine dining, or maybe thinks of themselves like a foodie, a little bit of a foodie? Okay, so there's a few people. So when you go into a nice restaurant, you sit down and you all of a sudden have 5-star service. It is of the freshest quality, and it came out in a matter of minutes. And it has the curly Q, and it's perfectly tweezed, and it's obviously not been sitting there. What they have done is a method that you need to do, which is called mise en place, which is to prepare in advance what story angles are going to work, what your target customer would want to click on, what pitch letters you're going to use, who the writers are going to be. Prepare everything in advance as if it is an ingredient so that when you're ready to go to market, you put them all together in a perfectly timed pitch, and then the media says, oh, everything's on a silver platter, I'm going to say yes to this. And it happens much more quickly than you might think.
Right, so sort of writing your own story and presenting it, that sounds great. I mean, imagine even on the other side, like, they must be relieved already having everything sort of queued up for them. And
oh my gosh. So being in Boston today, I interviewed one of my favorite writers at Fast Company, and she was telling me that so many people pitch with press releases. And I tell people don't ever do that, because a press release is not a story. Now, for people here who are investors or who, they are hoping to raise a round, oftentimes they'll come to me and say, we need to get this out in the world. Right. So can you write a press release and send it out over PR Newswire? And this is common knowledge and common practice, and it's a terrible, terrible idea. So don't ever do it. Because what happens is, first of all, you're paying for the subscription of PR Newswire. Second of all, if it gets published on a part of the website that nobody ever reads. So you're in a sort of subdomain where, okay, you get the logo, but it's not going to convert.
Right.
Third of all, it's not a story. There is nothing, it's an announcement. So instead, what you want to do, think of it this way. Again, going back to empathy, so many of the media and writers are getting 3,000 pitch emails a week. So who here gets a lot of emails? Yeah, I mean, if someone's not getting a lot of emails, I want to talk to you after because this would really, really help my life. I get a lot of emails, but I don't get 3,000 a week. And just imagine 3,000 emails of every single one of them wanting you to do something for them and to do it on a deadline. Using empathy, we can automatically see why so many pitches get deleted. Because if it is a press release as an announcement saying, hey, I'm super cool and awesome, you should write about me, but it doesn't give them any sort of angle, then it actually creates more work for them to do. So instead, there's a really simple fix, which is, okay, but how do I create an angle? And do you feel like that would be something people would be interested to hear about?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, do you guys want to hear about how to create angles?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, awesome. So one of the things that I've done in my signature system is create a three-step process. And I call them the 3 new rules of PR. And some of this is in the book that you will read. But what we can workshop here in our talk is how to create angles specific for you. So it can be really hands-on. The first method of PR is what I call the archetype approach, okay? The archetype approach was created in the early years of my business. I was working for Psychology Today magazine, and I was brought on to write headlines for about 35 articles a week for about a year. So 35 times 52, that's a lot of headlines and a lot of tweets.
Right.
And what I did was I realized which headline types would go viral the most often. So all of a sudden, I could see how 7 million people responded just by 35 articles a week. And I distilled them down into 13 different archetypes. And you can copy and paste these archetypes and use them for your business, your book, your brand, or your announcement if you're closing an investor deal with a company, and how to tell the story in a better way. So the archetype approach has 13 different archetypes, and one of them, which I feel could work for so many people here in the room, is the low to high arc. So the first one that I'll share with you is the low to high arc, and it is one of the most powerful ones to use in national media. And it's so simple. It makes your head bleed when you think how simple it is. But think about back to when you were a kid and you read, the Rags to Riches tale, or, those kinds of stories that we all loved as kids. They still work now, and they work really well in Forbes and Fast Company and Business Insider. And if you have in your personal life a story of triumph, of resilience, of, you were homeless in the street, and all of a sudden now you've sold 3 companies, this is an amazing angle that people will love to click on, and it's a great headline to use to get yourself out there and to get to a yes much more quickly at the national level.
Right. No, I mean, unknown to unforgettable. It's a great headline, great story there.
You see what I did there? Yeah.
So you're pitching, like when you put together and you're pitching to these media agencies, like you already have the headline and most of the article and angle laid out, that you're presenting to them?
Yeah. So when you craft your pitch letter, is this good stuff, by the way? Is this helpful, guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We definitely get your questions because I want to be able to customize all of this for you afterward. The concept of the pitch letter is really important. So first of all, when you write the headline, you need to format the headline in a particular way, and it's going to sound so basic, but as someone who has written for Forbes and the New York Times and Fast Company and Time.com, I've had my fair share of people pitch me, and it's a 0 for 0 so far. I've never accepted any of them. Because the pitch letters are not done correctly and the headlines are terrible. So the headline, most people I'll tell you what's wrong first and then you can fix it. So many people will write a headline that says something like, new book in Forbes. And they think this is going to be quick and clever to make an announcement that they have this best-selling book and they want to be in Forbes. But there is no story there, and it's worse than a press release. So instead, what you need to do is categorize your pitch, first of all. Think about it. They could be getting an invitation to a gala. They could be getting a sponsorship request. They could be getting a guest article submission. There are many different things they could be emailed about. So you want to put pitch as the first part of that email headline. And then you can actually title the headline that you want to use. So let's say it's, low to high. Who here would like to share maybe what a low to high could be for them or for their client or something like that? Okay.
The CEO of my organization has been blind since the age of 7. She did not learn Braille until she was 12, so her written literacy rate is quite low, but she founded an organization while she was in her freshman dorm room at Wellesley, went to the Kennedy School, has had multiple fellowships, has been to 33 countries,
Oh, wow.
and is now on the Speaker Bureau for both the United Nations and State Department.
This is amazing.
Great example.
So that is such an amazing story, and what you want to do is actually distill it down into what a headline would be. So using the low to high arc, it could be this girl became blind at age of 7. Now she leads however millions of people at the United Nations. And that's a really great headline, like an actual headline. And you could see that, right? Like anybody could see that or read that. Harvard Business Review, The Economist, like all these different outlets. This would be a very interesting headline. So you put that actually in the title of the email. And then you go into the pitch letter, and here's where people go amiss. So typically, when people write pitch letters, they'll go directly into whatever the pitch is. And usually it's something like, hey, I'm really awesome, and here's my bio, and this is how incredible I am. And you are. Like, it's really, everyone is amazing. So it's just about how to structure it in a way that works and increase your chances of getting to yes, okay? So the first thing you want to do is make sure that the first sentence of the pitch letter is about them and not about you. So going back to empathy, they're getting 3,000 pitches and they're really tired. They're super overwhelmed. One of my favorite writers has 60 deadlines a month.
Wow.
Let's just contemplate that for a second. Like, coming from the girl that wrote one paper all 4 years of high school, the concept of 60 deadlines is just extremely overwhelming to me. And what you want to do is extend a genuine compliment to them at first touch point. So you say, I really loved your recent article about this topic. No one covers this issue like you do. And it really resonates with me because of this reason. So that just a genuine compliment, it softens the barrier. Then you go into the actual pitch. Are you interested in a story about, and you list the headline there, and you repeat it. So even if it was in the email title, repeat it again. And in those 2 sentences, that's basically the pitch. Okay? But they can say no. So what do you think they do? What do you do if you say no just to one pitch? How could you possibly increase your chances? Instead of just writing one idea, you want to actually send 3 to 5 ideas in one pitch letter. So you could say, I'm available to discuss, and then list 5 bullet point headlines that could work for you. So you use one pitch letter to pitch 5 times and increase your chances of getting a yes. And so many times, Forbes or Fast Company will write back to me and say, I love number 3. Or I love number 4, can you get an article about this? And it's just an easier way to get to, the result in half the time.
Oh, that's great. And so, does it end up, or you're writing obviously a bunch of these emails to different media outlets.
Yeah.
Like, do you see, they're all choosing number 3, or is it sort of tailored to different writers and authors?
Yeah, that's a good question. Every writer likes a different one. Like, there hasn't been one that's just the runaway favorite. But let me give you an example. So one of my clients, she was a concert pianist, okay? She played in the most elite pianos of the world on stage for 30 years. And then she realized there's got to be more to life. I'm not very fulfilled here. So I'm going to run away to Africa. So she went to Africa and she befriended a bunch of people doing activism there. around women's education and girls' rights. And she started a school of her own. And now her work, she works with Nobel Peace Prize nominees, and her work impacts the lives of 30,000 people. When she came to me, it was a mess because it was so awesome what she was doing, but no one understood it. Her website was poor designed, and she'd worked with other PR people in the past who had told her, there's no story here, like this is not going to be anything.
Right.
And here's what you can do to change the odds if you've been told like this isn't going to work. First of all, what we did was we completely, first of all, redesigned her website, but then what I did was I looked for a writer who wrote for multiple platforms. Now, this is awesome. The odds have never been more in your favor because so many staff writers are getting let go by the thousands. CNN is laying off thousands of reporters. Condé Nast is shifting things a lot. Like it's a challenging time for writers, but what's happening is that really high quality writers now write for 5 to 10 platforms each.
Right.
So that's why it's never been easier to get featured at the highest level. So what you want to do is get your headline, or your 3 to 5, and then identify who writes articles in a similar topic, but they have not written that topic in the past 6 months. Because you don't want to write, so many people, they see a story and they're like, this is perfect for me, but it was already published last week. So don't pitch the same thing, but like something complementary. And then go to the writer, and what I did was I found a writer who wrote for Forbes, USA Today. She had her own blog. I think she wrote for Travel and Leisure or something as well. And sending only 9 pitches out, we secured like 14 feature opportunities for this client of mine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be thousands of pitches that you send out. Just find the 1, 3, 5 writers that are perfectly aligned, and even better if they write for multiple platforms. And then how great would that be if you send three emails and you get like 10 features out of it?
That sounds pretty great.
Yeah, totally.
A quick question.
Yes.
So unless you do have the funds to pay, $15,000 for meltwater, what other ideas do you have to find journalists that are writing on a specific topic?
Yeah, okay, great. So that's the thing, is that a lot of these databases, they do cost a lot, and it can be really prohibitive for people who are on a budget, a nonprofit budget, solopreneur budget. So what I tell people is, instead, you need to get a plugin for Google Chrome, and it's totally free, and it's called Rocket Reach. And you can find virtually anybody's contact information. Gary Vaynerchuk is on there. A lot of people are on there. Senior editors, editors-in-chiefs. And you can find anyone's emails through there, up to about like 45 contacts a month or something. And then after that time, it's like $49 a month, but I mean, it's so worth it to find anybody's contact. And that's actually what my agency does is, we keep the overhead low, so we're not going to be paying for, $15,000 for these databases that are often not up to date anyway. So yeah, I would do that. Great. Good stuff.
Yeah, and then so you build out your pitch, your headline, you find the right author and writer like that would fit with your topic, and then basically you're off to the races there. Like, how do you leverage, once an article comes out, how do you make sure you take the most advantage of the press?
Okay, so great question. So here's the deal. A lot of people think, okay, I need to get featured everywhere. I'm going to be, and publicists will tell you that. They'll say, like, we're going to get you everywhere. They practically promise you a billboard in Times Square. And you think this is going to be so worth it. Don't fall for it, because you really only need like 3 to 5 key outlets, 3 to 5 key placements. Get the logos on the website.
Right.
And then from there, what you do is you have to know how to leverage it. So when you go into the interview, So many people come to me, they've been featured 92 times on TV and they have no clients. It's like, this is a huge waste of time. So instead, what you do is really dial in your call to action. So when you go into a television interview, like we could call this a mock interview, right?
Right.
It's like, I'm going to answer all your questions, but I also have things I want to share too. So think about it this way. If you went to a television interview, know in advance what the goal of that interview is going to be. Is it lead gen? Because if it's lead gen, you're going to drive people to a free opt-in that they can use or get with an email magnet.
Right.
So then, or is it book buys? And then you're going to drive people straight to the book. Or is it just positioning? And then you're going to talk about how you help your clients, 5x their prices in 3 months, and you talk about testimonies and testimonies and testimonies, and people say, that's what I want, that's what I need. So just know in advance what your goal is, and really dial in the call to action. One of my clients, she came to me, and she was already running a 7-figure business, but she had never been on TV, and she was coming out with her second book. And so she said, well, this is my moment. I'm going to get on television. And so within about 3 weeks, she was on TV, and we were getting her like 1 to 2 television features a month with the consulting with the team.
Right.
And she 5x'd her prices within 90 days. Nobody batted an eye. So all of a sudden, you're talking about exponentially more revenue for a business, plus a much higher tier clientele. And now she's just scaling like crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So what types of, it sounds like, you've worked with musicians, authors, like everybody sort of all over the place. Like, what makes somebody a good client for you? Or like, who do you like helping the most, like sort of grow and scale, either their personal or their business brand?
Yeah, I love people who are disruptors. So if you're doing something different, then we need to talk. Because the people I work with, they really want to be at the highest level, and they want to be in national media outlets. They want to be movement makers, and they want to be the face of their movement, but nobody's moving. So they need momentum, and they need to figure out how to accelerate what they're doing. So what I do is very, very strategic. I specialize in national platforms because I think it's twice the impact in half the time. And if you're wearing 10 different hats, why not get twice the impact in half the time? And so oftentimes they're women, many times they're authors, and I have students in 9 countries. I have clients around this country, and we're just scaling like crazy. So for people who want that kind of custom support and figure out how this can work for them, we're doing a mastermind in New York in October, and we're going to run a yacht summit. And we're going to have media, Fast Company, Forbes, all these top media on board the yacht for people to meet and to pitch using my method, and build the relationships with them. Plus, have some champagne. We'll make it fun.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So it's a good time. I'm all about giving people the platform in order to accelerate their message and position themselves as a power player.
Right. No, that sounds incredible. I just want to make sure, give some time for audience questions, and then, I have a couple other questions to wrap up with.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I was wondering, so in that email, the subject line says pitch, and then some alluring title, and then the body that compliments the reporter, and then say, what do you think about a pitch about blah, and then the three or five potential headlines. What do you kind of go into after that? Like, are you saying like, I have in mind an article that would kind of cover these topics and it would be appealing to your audience for this reason, or how do you sort of structure the rest of it?
Awesome question. Okay.
Thank you.
So you're going to say, first of all, are you interested in an article about this topic, or an interview, or a guest, or this can work for speaking as well? Are you interested in a breakout about this topic? If so, I would like to recommend myself, Josh, creator of X thing, and you link to that. Link to the thing. That way they can quickly check out, okay, is this person credible? Does the website look good? And think about it this way. Again, using empathy, a journalist is there to make their platform look good. And if you can be a credible source for them, you help them look amazing. If you help them go viral, they are going to get promoted, they're going to get paid more, they're going to get better stories, better guests. So think of them like your friend, and you're doing them a favor because you do have an amazing story to share. And by helping them to go viral, then you're actually making the world a better place for yourself as well as for them. So you say that, first of all. That's that first paragraph. Does that make sense so far?
Yep.
Second paragraph is going to be your credibility markers. That's where you brag about yourself. And this is for everyone who feels uncomfortable bragging. You brag like crazy about how awesome you are, okay? And what you're looking for is how many people you've impacted, how long you've been doing this, if you went to school for this, how many countries you're in, if you're an author of a book, and if the book is a bestseller, how many people you've spoken to, or which prestigious stages you've been on, if you're a TED speaker, etc. So that paragraph is where you say, you know, I'm on a mission to do this. I'm on a mission to revolutionize the way people do X. So that's where you start with your why, and then you go into the how. And for the past 20 years, I've reached over 3 million people with my message on, across all my platforms, and I've impacted the lives of people in 60 countries. And so you brag. Don't lie, but fluff it up. And then you go into the third paragraph, which is, I'm available to discuss these topics, and you have your 3 to 5 bullet point ideas. And then you close by saying, are you available for 10 minutes on this day and time? And it's very important that you say that because they are never going to write you back and look in their calendar and find a time. They're way too busy. So you say, are you available for 10 minutes? That way they know you get it. You're not taking up too much time. They're super busy. And you're giving them an easy yes or no with the date and time. And that's it. And that is such a powerful, simple to the point way to get a yes.
Any other questions there?
I'd like a comment.
Yeah, sure.
One other thing that I have tried, it might be unusual actually to think of, I was thinking about the middle layer at these big publishing houses, and they're overwhelmed in every possible way. What I did, and I've done so for the past few years, I have a top-down approach. So I literally use tools like you do. I have one that is called Find That Lead. It's one of the best ones out there because it pulls not just the email, but also all social media profiles of that individual, so you save a lot of time. I actually just emailed straight the chief editors because I know if I get his attention, the article will be written in any possible way. And
Right.
I've done so just recently, and it was very successful. So yeah, rather than emailing the people in between, I just go straight to the chief editors because this increases the likelihood. If the email is being opened, it's more likely that he will basically just delegate. You will not turn down a request from the chief editor, period.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, just a comment.
That's good. I like that. Yeah. And also, to add to that, one way, do you use a software to check and see if your email's opened?
Yeah, of course. There's one which works incredibly well for Gmail. I use Gmail for business.
Yep.
It's called Gmelius, Gmelius, and it gives me a very detailed breakdown when they open it, what device they used, and all these details. So yes, this is incredibly important because you can even see an indicator if things are going hot.
Yeah.
Meaning if they open an email 4 or 5 times, that shows you your email is of interest. If it's only being opened once, you kind of know, okay, it's been recognized and then probably discarded or something like that.
Right.
So I use that.
Yeah. I've used
Super.
a similar one. Mix is
Yeah,
pretty good as well. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So like, or sort of going off of that, like, do you usually target one, one person, whether it's the writer or the editor at a media agency, or do you send it to a few different people over there and try and see which one gets the first hit?
I pitch multiple at the house in order to increase the chances. And here's a lot of people ask me, because there are fewer and fewer people on staff now, so the chief editor is great. With the contributing writers, you have a higher chance of being featured somewhere because they're often writing for 5 or 10 outlets. So you have a higher chance of getting in somewhere. But it's a little slower because they have editors who are backlogged. So if you want to go for the editor, it could be faster, but it's a lesser chance. And if you go for the contributing writer, it's a higher chance, but it is a little slower.
Okay.
So choose which one. If you have time, then you could go for the contributing writer. And if you're pressed for time, honestly, what I would say is to message them and say, I'm in town for 2 days for a series of meetings, and I would love to stop by the office and bring your favorite coffee on Thursday morning, and never Friday, and never Monday. But between Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and to say, I'm in town, I would love to come by your office for 5 minutes, bring your favorite coffee, and I got so many yeses that way, because you're going to them and bring them the coffee, and that FaceTime is really valuable. So I would say just work it whichever way you can.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Any other questions here?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So you said you have the high to low, low to high story type, right? So what if you don't have that type of experience and you're trying to create a story? Like, how do you pick which part of you want to share with the world, basically?
Yeah, so what I would do is, inside one of my programs, it lists all 13 archetypes. What you can do is take yourself or your client or the industry, whatever you're trying to create, and go through all the archetypes and just create headlines that match each different one. You don't have to overshare. I've had clients who, they were strippers and they built $40 million companies, and they don't want people to know they were strippers. And you don't have to share everything, but you can use the archetypes to share what you want to, and to build a variety so that when people see it, they have a model that they can say yes to and that they will like. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
But then you have to just do one archetype, or you can mix all the archetypes in one email?
You can mix them all up.
Okay.
In fact, you can blend them together.
Okay.
So with the no Photoshop idea, that was an unexpected twist archetype, but it was unexpected twist, it was new, it was low to high because we cast models off the street. So, anybody, a janitor, could be in the pages of a magazine. So there were many ways that it fed into the archetypes, but layered them all together. And if you layer them, then, you increase your chances of going viral. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes?
How do you balance it, again, in the emails that you're sending to pitch, how do you balance length, sort of detail versus brevity? How much detail are you going into about a potential story, or for that matter, your background?
That's a great question. In the opening in the paragraph with the credibility markers, you don't want to have more than 5 sentences. So it's pretty brief.
Yeah.
And in the interview itself, you want to keep it as punchy as possible and only do 3 to 4 sentences per answer. But that is where you explain a little more in depth about who you are.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think so.
Yes?
Are you working with influencers, and if so, how do you identify them for your client, for their needs?
Yeah, okay, great question. Okay, so with influencers, it's the Wild West right now. You probably are aware. And in general, people are expected to be paid about 1/100th of the total follower count that they have. Okay? Follower count isn't everything. So you want to choose the influencer that has at least 3% engagement, which is actually fairly difficult to achieve
Are you using tools to measure that, external tools?
There are some. You can use, I'll get back to the list, but even just, look at their platforms and say, okay, they have 1 million followers and they have 40 likes. This is not actual followers. So, or you can say, okay, they have 5,000 likes, but they have no comments. Okay, then they bought the likes. So always look, the engagement is really what you want to look for, and the quality of the engagement. So did people actually have meaningful conversation in the comment section? Did they reply to the comments? Or were they just like a bunch of hearts and 2 stars, and those are bots as well? So the engagement piece is really key. But now a lot more people are moving to podcasts because podcasting has much higher engagement rates than, say, Instagram in terms of buyers. And the affluence of a podcast listener is much higher than the average Instagram user. And in fact, one of my clients is launching a podcast network, a global podcast network, which will offer comprehensive data analysis around the back end of all of the users so that they can measure who's clicking, when they're clicking, who's listening, and you can really target the ads to the listener and the audience. So we can talk afterward about that piece if it's of interest.
And how do you measure, I mean, obviously, it's easiest if you're in an online article, like you see people, or they measure like people clicking through the website, but when it comes to something like a podcast or, being on the radio or TV, how do you sort of measure the results from that?
In terms of leverage?
To see if it was effective for the company.
Yeah, okay, so here's the thing, and this goes back to your earlier question about leverage, which is a really important one, and I want to be sure I answer. If you get those 3 to 5 logos, people often say, okay, but now what? So there's more than one way to measure ROI. Most people do PR thinking like a marketer, which is click-through rate. And PR is very different because PR is about making deposits into your own personal brand ATM machine so that if you were to leave the company, your logos would follow you wherever you go as your personal brand. If you wanted to raise investor funding later, you've been featured, not all the other previous brands that you've worked with. So it is really important to make those deposits because it is brand equity for yourself, and it's longevity and it's job security wherever you go. And if you raise your own personal brand appeal, you become much more enticing to another startup, which could want some of that brand equity for the cool factor in order to raise an investor round, seed round, angel round, whatever. So think of it like a deposit into a personal brand ATM machine, which is going to pay you over the long term. So it's not immediate click-through rate, where if you're not running the Facebook ad, no one's clicking on it, right? But if you have the brand logos, you can run Facebook ads to those stories. You can run Facebook ads to your feature in Forbes, or to your TED Talk, or to the screenshot of you on stage or winning an award,
right.
and that's really, really important as well. So I'm not trying to say it's completely nebulous. I'm just saying it's not just the click-through rates. That being said, if you do the call to action appropriately, there should be immediate return, and I've grown my list by 500 just from one article because of the call to action and doing it in a really enticing way. So it's kind of a both and scenario.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Any other questions here?
This helpful, guys?
Yeah.
Do you have other nuanced questions about your situation that could help you, or?
Going off of that, do you have any suggestions for how to create successful calls to action on multiple platforms?
Good question.
Specifically in social media?
In social media. So that's a good question. So what would be your end goal for the call to action? Is it lead gen, or is it?
It's mainly donations and speaking engagements.
So trying to book speaking engagements? Yep. Okay. I would focus in on the speaking engagements piece. I feel like that's a little bit more in my wheelhouse than the raising investment part. But in terms of the speaking engagements piece, one thing that is really helpful is to regularly post and place little excerpts of previous speaking engagements or pictures of you speaking or your boss speaking, or audience shots or testimonies of speaking, and put those materials around. And again, going back to the personal brand, over time, people will send you direct messages, private messages, slide into your DMs on Instagram, and they'll ask you to speak in different places just because you're putting yourself out there as a speaker. And so one thing that is challenging to people occasionally is to brag about all the speaking they've done. And so one way to do it is just to say, like, so grateful that I'm here in such and such town. You know, I'm going to be posting, like, I'm so grateful to be talking to you guys, and really come at it from a place of gratitude. And I'm sure we've all seen those people that are like, yet again, I have done an amazing thing. And it's like, okay, but if you do it in a way that's, I'm really grateful, and I met this awesome person, and I had this great conversation and connection, and then even highlight then, like, your boss could say, hey, I'm here with so-and-so, and we're talking about XYZ thing. Like, there's many ways to do it. Just make sure it's native to the platform. So Instagram story, or Grid, or IGTV, or YouTube clips, like, make sure it's native to the platform. Great.
Good question.
Yeah.
I recently read that the co-founder of Thinks, someone who's she's raised a lot of news in the past, she said something along the lines of she won't respond to someone's email unless they lead with, how can I help you? Or how can I, be of service to you in some way, right? And I'm just curious, and that's definitely her own perspective. I'm wondering if you have any best practices for reaching out and relationship building.
Yes, that is such a good question. Okay, so it's becoming more and more the case, especially with very notable podcast hosts, people who have millions of downloads. They are of a class of celebrity. I would say Mickey is in that category. And what happens is they become very selective, and they're not on staff to write about anyone or to do anything for anyone. So for that reason, you have to give before you get. So we went through the first tool, which was the archetype approach. Right. My third, and is in the book as well, is giving before you get and how you do that. So one way to do it is to think about what they would value. If someone has a book coming out, they want publicity every single time. If you have a podcast or you know someone who is a podcast host and they would be awesome, set them up as a goodwill effort, and you offer brand collateral and brand equity in that relationship. They associate you with that really great deed. If someone could be a great connect for someone, you could host a dinner party and say, okay, let me see if I can give you an example. How about this? I'll give you an example. Marie Forleo has a book coming out. Okay, it's coming out September 10th. She runs B School. She has a global brand. I interviewed her for her B School launch in February. Brought her on my podcast because she wanted promotion. Her book's coming out, and so many of my clients would love to be on her show. Like, they send me a list of they want to be on Marie's show. So one of the ways to build brand equity is I'm in very close touch with her stories manager. And I told her, look, I have a queue of people in Forbes and Inc. and all these top podcasts who want to interview Marie for her book coming out. You don't have to pay me. It's just Marie's changed my life, and I really want to give back to her, and this book is going to be revolutionary. And so that is a very easy way to say, leverage the connections that you have, leverage the value that you can bring at a certain point in their life. It doesn't just have to be monetary. It doesn't just have to be bringing them coffee, because honestly, if I drink more coffee in a day, it's like I'm going to be fried, So, but think creatively. Like, most of the time, people want some sort of a connection. That's really what people are wanting. And if you have an advantageous connection, that's a great place to start. And if you are a writer, and offering a guest post or offering something for free. How I got the story to go viral in Huffington Post was I had previously written an article for them that went viral. So they knew that I did something for free, so I got a meeting with the chief of staff. And then they said yes, and then it went viral. So it was like, just think creatively, and we can even brainstorm later about the things you might have of value, but always deliver value first, if you can. And if you guys want to connect with me afterward, if this is helpful for you, but you have questions or your brain is mush and you just want to like process and talk later, you can find me on Instagram, and I would love it if you follow me. I actually read that more than my texts now if you direct message me, but it's just ashcrouch1, and I'm on Instagram, and if you direct message me, then we can even continue the conversation and brainstorm about how this could work for you. Yeah, of course.
Sounds great. And then, yeah, you know, as an author yourself or working with, you know, other publishing media outlets, like, you know, if we want to continue to learn more, like, are there any books, news articles, podcasts you recommend that everybody should be listening to and following?
Yes. Well, please follow my podcast, which is called Prowess. Prowess. I've interviewed Marie Forley on there. I have an interview coming out with Chandler Bolt this week, who's talking about how to get your book in front of 10,000 people right out the gate. I've done Brendan Burchard, has some really cool interviews. So the podcast would be awesome. And then I do offer free trainings. Like if this was helpful for you and you want more, just, you know, monthly trainings and videos and things, you can go to my Facebook group, which is Media Masters. And I'm in there all the time hosting free offers or giveaways or monthly videos and things. So
That sounds great.
yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great job, and yeah, let's give Ashley a